While when Biden was the nominee, it was kind of, people had given up. They thought Trump would win. But now that's not the case any longer. So she absolutely has a chance. Although, if I were a betting person, I still wouldn't bet on either of them. It's so neck and neck and razor's edge. And a few thousand votes will decide, who wins.
Ms. Seema Sirohi, thank you so much for joining us on Global Compass all the way from US. How have you been?
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me.
What was the first thought that was going through your mind when you were watching that debate?
It's a very, very pivotal moment for both of them. If he had to kind of uh, project sanity and, calm, she had to define herself to voters who didn't know her and don't know her. So it was a very important moment for both of them.
Absolutely. Very important moment. And, I've been speaking to a lot of people both here and in the US. And what they said was that some of the loss that the Democrats had after that disastrous Biden Trump debate, some of that loss was covered. That was a good thing for the Democrats. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. Because the last debate when Trump faced Joe Biden, I mean, it was a disaster. There's no two ways about it. And when Kamala Harris was nominated, I think the party was energized. There are a lot more volunteers signing up every day, especially in swing states. So, a lot more money coming into the Democratic Party. So, absolutely, the race now is neck and neck. While when Biden was the nominee, it was kind of, people had given up. They thought Trump would win. But now that's not the case any longer. So she absolutely has a chance. Although, if I were a betting person, I still wouldn't bet on either of them. It's so neck and neck and razor's edge. And a few thousand votes will decide, who wins.
I'm sure it'll be very interesting. November will be extremely interesting. But let's talk about certain specific issues now from that debate. I'm going to start with war. I'm sorry, I think of US, I think of war. That's maybe my personal prejudice, but it is what it is. So let's talk about how how both of them are approaching strategies. When it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to Israel and Hamas. So they, of course, they did attack each other on war strategies. But how do you think specifically they will handle it? You remember, I mean, the Trump delaying on NATO funding and all of those issues. How do you think they will handle it individually?
As far as the former president Donald Trump goes, he's been very clear he wants the war to end. So, the sympathy for Ukraine and the money for Ukraine that's been flowing from Washington, D.C., that'll come under pressure. And he will put maximum pressure on Zelensky to make a deal. People perceive Trump as being friendly with the Russian president. That, would play a role too.
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kiev right now.
But what you're seeing now, there is a movement towards trying to end this war, even in Europe. So Trump may find support in places like Germany. Now, as far as Kamala Harris goes, She was very clear in during the debate that she wants, she will continue to support Ukraine. The question is uh, whether she will have support in the US Congress, because the money has to be approved by the US Congress. And there are indications that Republicans will take over the Senate, and the House may be going to the Democrats. So it's going to be gridlocked. So she may want to continue to support Ukraine and say all the very, strongly pro-Ukraine things, but the problem will be, how does she get the money? How does she get the support within the US system? There is some fatigue in the US with this war.
I'm sure it's been going on forever. I'm sure. So let's move on from a war to guns, and both of them kind of put forth their pro-gun stance. Kamala Harris said she owns a gun. The VP nominee owns a gun. Tim owns a gun, and she said nobody's taking the guns away.
Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
I mean, what about the people? What about all those mass shootings? What about the school shootings? And the fact that, Donald Trump himself was shot at. What exactly, is going on when it comes to the gun laws is something that really intrigues me.
So, the gun issue in America is one of those issues that the rest of the world cannot understand. And many Americans also cannot understand. But the gun lobby here is so strong that neither party can take a very anti gun stand. The National Rifles Association, the NRA, as it's called, they have the politicians, by the collar, so to say. They donate a lot of money, and every time either party, mainly the Democrats, try to put some controls on gun ownership, the NRA gets activated and starts to lobby. So it's one of those things that, you know, to the rest of the world seems very obvious that there would be fewer mass shootings if there were fewer guns on the streets. But no, this is one of those paradoxes of American society that nobody can really explain. It's all the power and money that the NRA puts into the political system that politicians are unable to fight or unwilling to fight. Now, the Democratic Party has tried to put some background checks, like before you go to buy a gun, people will, you have to go through a check. Like if you have some history, you cannot buy it. But it depends from state to state. And then all these big guns that, you know, um, you don't really need for self protection, which is the main explanation or justification that the NRA gives, is that you need guns for self protection. No, we are talking about machine gun type of things. You don't need that. It's You're not being attacked by a group of people that you need to protect yourself. You need a small gun. So even these big guns are quite freely available, and very small measures have been taken by the US Congress to put controls, but it's one of those things that I don't know if it'll ever change in my lifetime.
Right, right. Very, very interesting. Because even Barack Obama, I remember, he talked about it a lot, but even he seemed powerless to do anything about it when he was president,
Yes,
right?
they are powerless at the end of the day against this whole culture of guns and against this gun lobby.
Right. Moving on, election after election after election, um, Donald Trump has talked about illegal immigrants. And even in this debate, there was this whole issue of illegal immigrants.
We have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics.
Do you really think that is such a big problem for America right now? And if so, if it is a problem, then what is the approach? And what is the approach that you feel will, appeal to voters more?
Illegal immigration is a problem. So, and Trump has made it a bigger problem. Between 2021 and 2024, an estimated 10 million border crossings took place at the southern border with Mexico. So, the Biden administration has to be held to account for that. Belatedly, they moved a bill, tried to move a bill which was killed in the US Congress to put controls. But through executive action, they have made getting asylum a lot tougher now. But it is also a fact that in the first 3 years, a lot of people came in and the system could not cope. They just disappeared into the country, and even democratic mayors of big cities like New York, Chicago, they said to the White House that, look, you need to do something because we cannot cope. All these illegal immigrants were coming. They had to be housed, they had to be given shelter and food and things like that. So it is an issue. And now Kamala Harris is kind of pivoting on this issue. Is no longer when she used to say that we should decriminalize immigration, that if someone sort of walks in illegally without proper papers, we should treat them as, more gently and kindly and not treat them as criminals. But now her stance has changed because the issue is resonating with both Democrats and Republicans. It is a big issue and it's a weakness for the Democrats.
I'm moving on to the next issue now. There's so much to discuss and very little time. The big issue of climate change. And unfortunately, both of them didn't seem to talk much about it. Both of them seem to have a very tokenistic kind of an approach. Doesn't that concern you? Because let me just tell you that yesterday there was a USIBC India Idea Summit in New Delhi, and the US president, the US ambassador to India, Ambassador Garcetti, he talked of the planet. He talked of how critical climate change is. But here, the two presidential candidates seem to just go over it. They did not seem to give a lot of importance to that factor. How concerning is that?
Well, I think I would fault the moderators of the debate for that. They didn't press the issue. They didn't, press either of them. But looking at the record of the Biden administration, they have passed the biggest climate mitigation sort of measures in the Inflation Reduction Act. They have put in billions of dollars into electric vehicles and reducing hydrofluorocarbons and things like that. So their record is quite good if you look at it. But Trump, on the other side, he's all for fossil fuels. He doesn't, he wants to give full freedom to the oil companies and to fracking and things like that. So Democrats have a pretty good record, I would say. So in the debate, it didn't come up. Perhaps because the moderators failed to do so, and perhaps because there were other more pressing issues that they wanted the voters to get to know, from both candidates.
Okay, so let's talk about another pressing issue, which is again a big issue as far as elections in the US are concerned, and that is the abortion laws. So Kamala Harris has been pretty vocal about it. She has taken a strong stand.
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral.
And Donald Trump, he maybe seemed a bit softer. He's softened his stance on that. So how much does that issue affect voting?
It's a very big issue. It's kind of number three after the economy and immigration, and it's resonating very well with women voters. And this is Kamala Harris's strongest issue because when she speaks about abortion rights, you can see that she actually feels very passionately about it, and it is one issue on which she is very eloquent, and she is not stumbling as she does maybe when she's asked about the economy. So it is a weak point for Trump and for Republicans. He's trying to be all over the place on it. He says one thing one day, another thing another day. And his vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, has been in favor of a national ban on abortion, which is going to hurt them with women voters if the Democrats are able to press this issue well, which she did during the debate. She did it quite well. And I've been watching some interviews, on TV with male voters. And they are also quite struck about this right being taken away and all these very right wing conservative um, activists in various states making it impossible for women to get an abortion, for them having to go to another state. So it's a big weakness for Donald Trump, and he knows it. That's why he keeps
Seems to have.
deflecting. He keeps deflecting. He says
Okay. Okay.
uh, he appointed the three conservative judges on the Supreme Court,
Hmm.
which led to the decimation of the abortion right under Roe versus Wade. Now
Hmm.
he's trying to backtrack. He says, oh, well, Americans wanted it to go back to the states. Now each state will decide. What that means is that there'll be 50 states, 50 different versions of what women have to face, which just means chaos and more pain for women. So this is a big issue, yes.
Yeah, and risk to their health, risk to their lives, and of course, not being in control of your body and not knowing what to do, not being able to take a decision. I think it's, yeah, you're right. It's a very, very big issue. Let's finally talk about India now. How should India go about things, and how will things change if Kamala Harris or if Donald Trump comes to power?
See, for India, essentially, there won't be any major shift in policy, whether it's Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, because um, there's bipartisan consensus in Washington that India is a major partner, India is a crucial country, and the relationship is very consequential. Why? Because of China. The US has declared China as its major rival, and the whole Indo Pacific policy rests on India's cooperation with the US. And looking at it from India's point of view, India also needs the United States uh, to counter China in Asia. So for both of them, this is a huge point of convergence. And I don't see any difficulty with either party uh, from continuing that policy. There may be a few different, shifts, like on trade. Donald Trump may be more demanding on concessions from India on trade issues, while Kamala Harris might raise the human rights issues more vocally. But it all depends. Once you're in the White House, the whole perspective changes. You get briefings from your national security team, you get intelligence briefings every day, and you think differently because you have more inputs into you. So, I don't think there is any major reason to worry about. And India dealt with Donald Trump the first time very adeptly. So, and they will do the same again, I'm sure. So the relationship is on very solid footing for it to, to be shaken by any either of them.
Let me now ask you my final question. You said it's neck to neck. You said it's very close, a few thousand voters here or there. Do you actually think America is ready for a woman president? That too, a woman of color, so to speak?
Well, I would say that's not as much an issue this time around as it was when Hillary Clinton ran. And because of some very smart strategy by the Democrats. Why do I say that? Because Kamala Harris hasn't emphasized her gender or her ethnicity beyond a certain point. She's talked about her mother being Indian and, being raised in a middle class home and working hard and all of that, but she hasn't made herself being a woman a big issue. And I think that's very good because she is coming at it as, well, I'm qualified, I'm a strong candidate, I'll be the president for all Americans. Deal with that, vote for me for who I am, forget whether I'm a woman or a man. And contrast that with Trump, who has a pretty bad reputation as far as dealing with women goes. He has insulted them. He's made some nasty
Misogynistic
comments.
comments, yes.
Yeah, very misogynistic comments. So I think the Democrats are not playing to the gender issue at all. Last time when Clinton ran, it was the slogan was for all women voters, I'm with her. So it was just always emphasizing the fact that she's a woman. It was a
Hmm.
mistake. Now it's like, I'm qualified, I'm the greatest, vote for me.
Which is how it should be, which is actually how it should be. I think, yeah, that's very smart. Lovely. Thank you so much. That perspective is important. Yeah. Because I mean that question was playing in my mind, since the beginning that, is America really ready? But yeah, it seems that people are looking at her as, the person to run the office and not just a woman to run the office. I think that is important. Yeah.
I think the country has also advanced a little bit, social debates and everything has gone beyond the fact that, oh, she's a woman. It doesn't matter, it sounds like this time around. And I think it's a good place to be for her. Yeah.
Right, right. Lovely. Now we shall wait for November to see what happens. And of course, the next few weeks are definitely going to be very exciting. Thank you so much, Seema Sirohi, for taking up the time and to talk to us and give us your perspective on all those issues that we talked about. Thank you so much for speaking to Global Compass.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Thank you.